What is up, guys? I know it's been a while, I haven't been posting any videos, but I'm still here, I'm alive, surprisingly. I just been doing a lot of stuff, staying busy, you know, with life, going to the gym all the time, especially that workflow. And so right now, I'm going with the guys. I'm very good to hang out with my friends, so we're gonna go on this little ghost tour in LA. It's called Santa Monica Pure Ghost, and which is weird. It's been a long time I haven't gone on a ghost tour or like anything paranormal related because I've been so busy lately. And so I will see you guys at the Santa Monica Pure Ghost Tours. So let's see how this goes. Really important to be open about it. Not believe whatever your ghost tour guide tells you. Stories, but it's really interesting. But just be open about it. Be open-minded, and then in your own mental state of mind, just know what you know. That's what I recommend to paranormal people or investigators. So for me, I've been doing this for like what, 9 years, 10 years. And I'm skeptical at times when it comes to this, but I enjoy it either way when I go to locations. Because I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube, and I just think they're just kind of weird. With this whole dramatic scenes and stuff. So, but don't get me wrong, they're fun to watch. But it's something you have to be real about the real world, you know. So let's get through this. See you guys at Santa Monica Pier Ghost Tour, guys.
Right? So we'll just start with the most obvious, right? So what people think it is, right? So people think that this is something pretty nice, right? So usually you get a pretty positive pitch about this place. So, you know, someone's gonna sell it on you. They're gonna say, there's 3.5 miles of beautiful beaches, and you're gonna look and you're saying, oh, that's true. Yeah. And then they're gonna say that everything around here is famous, and you're gonna say, prove it. And they're gonna point to you to that Ferris wheel, and it's in the movie Iron Man. And you go, that's a pretty popular movie. I know that, you know? And then just all around town, there's things like that. So at the end of Forrest Gump, they run to the end of the pier. And as you walk around town, you're not only gonna see the place where all these rich and famous people hang out, but you also see these kind of these places that are in all these famous kind of movies and stuff, right? Also in like the 30s and 40s, all these famous crime movies came out of here. So a lot of the great noir films, like the real great crime movies, came out of here. So that's kind of what people think it is, right? Another quick thing, you know, there's like Muscle Beach right there. So it's like where Arnold Schwarzenegger would hang out. You know, you go see pictures of him looking insane. And then there's like 8 surrounding towns that are really wealthy, right? So there's a lot of money that's being spent here. You know, if you guys have come from 3rd Street Promenade, you know, just at the end of the year, I might get one shirt with like, you know, my paycheck or something, you know? But a lot of people are just spending like there is no tomorrow. And for some of them, there isn't. You know, but for a lot of people that have been through here, you know, they remain in a different kind of way, right? So now I want to like go from that very surface level to the bigger picture. There's always a bigger picture, no matter how much you look into something. So the bigger picture is this: is that if you go inwards to Hollywood, right, and you're in Hollywood, you can stop at this place called the La Brea Tar Pits, and the oldest body was dragged out of there 7,000, 8,000 years ago, right? So even that's a mystery, right? First of all, people have been here for a long time. So the United States footprint here is nothing, right? It's only been 100-something years, and people, we think we're gonna be here forever, we're not going to be. Yeah. You know, the people that were here the longest were called the Tongva tribe. They were here for 4,000 years, and they spoke a ton of languages. I mean, think about how different things would have been just 150 years ago compared to 4,000 years ago. And even before them, there was a civilization. So everything has so many more layers than we can imagine, right? But for the main periods we'll talk about, just remember those Tongva people. Then, you know, the Spanish come, and we'll talk about them, the conquerors. Then there's a brief period where the Mexican Republic, and then the U.S. sweeps in. So that's why we started at this canon, right? So this is the story how the U.S. kind of first gets here, first sweeps in, right? Is that actually the Mexican Republic was doing pretty good, right? Because a lot of these Mexican landowners were very wealthy and very powerful, and a lot of these Tongva
were only in charge for 25 years.
They're all, yeah, very short time, but it was kind of fun for the, you know, it was like the real wild. So I like to kind of add a couple of different stories because, you know, this is such a seascape town. You know, the sea plays such a big part of this town, right? So we'll just start with you know, I mentioned some of these surrounding communities. So they just built up this kind of tech town called Playa Vista, right? I'm sure you guys know a little bit about horror stuff. What do you think that they did when they built it? Think about your most obvious thing. What's it built over? India, so they legitimately were digging up a Tongva burial ground as they were putting this town together.
Yeah.
So even you go to this town, it's almost very lifeless. There's all these kind of new tech people there, and everything is super, almost sterile, like a hospital. And it's kind of creepy itself. It looks like everyone's a little possessed or something. But the truth is, it was in the papers that these Tongva burial sites were just getting destroyed, so that even there, people say the Tongva have a presence. But when we just look at the waters here, it's just kind of cool to start at the beginning, right? So the first time the Spanish landed here would have been in the 1500s, like the 1540s. And the guy that landed here was Juan Cabrillo, right? So these Tongva people essentially saw this ship that come ashore, and they had no idea what it was, right? Actually, the ship had just come from Mexico, which he had named New Spain. And Juan Cabrillo, one of his closest friends, was Cortez the Killer, who, you know, who massacred the Aztecs, you know?
Yep.
So this was a bad guy that these people were encountering, and they had no idea how dangerous, you know, the situation was. But the thing that happened was a little strange, is that he essentially landed, and he was really headed in that particular voyage for the Philippines. So he landed and just left instead of conquering the people. So for about 200 years, the people told stories about what they called the mansions on the sea, of these like Manila galleons, these massive Spanish ships, right? So you think of like 200 years, you know, before this place was like, you know, fully colonized. That's like how many generations? That could be easily 4 or 5 generations saying, you know, years and years ago, this insane ship landed with these men that look like no other men we've ever seen, and we see them pass every once in a while, and they might come back one day, right? Which is just wild, you know. So people do say late at night that they have seen one of those large Spanish ships still making its voyage, and these people in these little willow houses, because the Tongva people were called the Quichereños, and people of the people of the willow houses. So they see them on the ocean, looking out at this ship, you know, almost waiting for them forever, right? But then there's another kind of cool ship, right? So now you've jumped to the 20s and 30s. And you notice this building, I bet it wouldn't surprise you when I tell you that mobsters love to stay in this building. So, you know, guys like Al Capone stop by here, but a guy like Bugsy Siegel, you know, have you ever seen the movie Bugsy? He was one of the big gangsters that built up Vegas.
Yeah.
You know, because Vegas is built by the mob.
Yeah.
A lot of Santa Monica is too, right? But the deal with this guy who was a big presence here, Tony Cornero, is he was selling a lot of bootleg liquor and doing real good. So when liquor became illegal, it was actually bad, you know, for the people that are making some good money. And so these mobsters had to do something really quickly. And so this guy did something pretty crazy. He bought a yacht that would have been several times the size of the pier, so a huge yacht. And this was like the 30s. And then he would have like 10 to 20,000 people having like this an illegal gambling party. So, you know, you would just walk past here and you would just hear like it was like, you know, like Cancun or something, people going absolutely insane on the pier on this yacht, right? And he ran that for a while until General Warren, this United States general, came down and told him to take the yacht in. He said, you know, you can't do this anymore. You think you're off the shore. This is insane. You're right here. He said, bring the yacht in. And so for 7 days, there was called the Battle of Santa Monica, where this yacht fired like cannons, and they threw things overboard, and they shot pistols, and they just refused to come in. So there's this insane standoff for 7 days until that finally the yacht came in, and then Tony Cornero went up to Vegas where he died from some shady stuff a few years later. Now, no one's ever said they've seen the yacht, but people swear that if you walk past here late at night, that you will still hear bottles popping, that you'll hear as if there's a party on the sea, that you'll even hear music from the 30s playing loudly. And they say that even if you swim out sometimes, something like a bowler hat, or, you know, like the kind of clothes that they would have worn at the time, wash up without any wear, as if they're perfectly intact. Now, these things, if they did exist, would just be destroyed. So it doesn't make any sense at all that these things would be just perfectly preserved and just hanging out here. So people say that Tony Cornero is still this spirit of greed, who still lives in the city and still, you know, is this kind of force that kind of contributes to the spending and all. Monica herself, you know. So this is the lady who is essentially the mother of this town, right? And she has a really interesting story, right? And it's an interesting one because like it's several different civilizations combined, right? So the first thing you need to know is that long before the Spanish started landing here and actually converting the people to Catholicism, there was a tradition of a woman who was weeping and looking for almost either a lost child, or you need to give her certain items, or else she will take either your children, or sometimes people say you yourself, right?
Like Llorona.
Like a La Llorona, or maybe even a banshee. A lot of different cultures have a weeping, but that's a story that's very old in this area. And they say the Tongva people were very serious about giving her the offerings to keep her from doing what she might do, right? So the crazy thing is that a whole different culture comes, right? So the Spanish come in the 1700s, and this guy, Father Juan Crespi, he's just down at this sacred Tongva site called the Curavugna Springs, baptizing these natives into Catholics. And there's a different saint for every day of the year. So that particular day of the year, the saint is Saint Monica. So basically, Saint Monica in Catholicism is the saint who wept, basically, because her son had just turned from God, and essentially what she was doing essentially was she was weeping over the fact that he was going to now, his soul was going to burn in fire, right? But essentially his son turned back and became Saint Augustine, so he just barely saved himself. But essentially, Father Juan Crespi all day long had been feeling like something was very strange. And he had been walking along, looking in the ocean, and he said, something's wrong. And people gave him a glass of water. They said, and he threw it away. He said, I cannot touch that. That's sacred water. And they said, all right. And then later, as he's baptizing these people, they say he stood back and had almost a panic. And he started shouting, Las Lagrimas de Santa Monica, right? So he said, everywhere, we think these are waters, but these are actually the tears of Santa Monica, which are everywhere here. Now, he had no idea that this idea of a weeping woman was already this thing that people had known about for a long time here. Just through Catholicism, he had experienced the same thing very strongly, right? This was built by this guy, Judge Harry Board, in the early 30s, right? And the deal with Judge Harry Board is that his mother was the wealthiest woman in town. So she was this socialite called Rosamond Board, right? And Rosamond Board had opened this building on the adjacent lot called the Windermere. So his mother already ran hotels. And his mother was actually like the local celebrity, but this guy Harry just grew up wanting to imitate his mother. So he was so into the hotel industry, he wanted to also join and build one of his own. So construction began on this. And they were really moving along until something very weird happens, right? With this woman, Rosamond Board, right? The deal with her is that she always liked to go walking around town wearing the same hat. Like, it was just a thing of the time. She always would wear the same really fancy hat when she went on a walk. And whenever she wanted to walk, no one ever saw her without it, So it's like, some certain people, they always wear an article of clothing and they just don't feel comfortable without it. You always see her with it, right? So it was just this one particular day, they're getting close to finishing this place. And the guy's just doing some work out in the front, right? He's doing some finishing touches on this place. And he said, from the corner of my eye, I saw these two women wearing these very thin nightgowns. And they were walking down the street. And I thought for sure it was Rosamond, but she didn't have her hat on. So I didn't stop to ask what was going on, but I saw them. And that night, they didn't return, right? So basically, the whole town went searching for Rosamond Board and her sister all over town, actually for a couple weeks, until they finally found the body of Rosamond Board, which had washed up down shore, right? And her sister was never found, right? So this is an early, unsolved murder of Santa Monica. And people say that this place has never been the same ever since. So remember, this is, if you were to think of this as if it was your own mother, right? So the son who was about to honor his mother, now this place is a monument. So people say that this is almost like as good as a gravestone, right? Dedicated to the woman who is the Georgian, or also the lady, which is Rosamond Board, right? So the Georgian actually is this woman who was either murdered or committed suicide. Who knows what happened? But for some reason, she just left one day and never returned, right? And ever since, this place has just been weird. So, I mean, what do you think were some of the things that might have happened here? What do you think?
Probably, I don't know, she was going through a lot probably, and then she was probably going through a lot.
Probably going through a lot, yeah.
She didn't know what to do anymore, and she just wanted to go away, and then she killed herself.
Yeah, what do you think of in terms of hauntings, though? Like, what kind of weird stuff would you guess?
Probably a lot of footsteps, maybe shadow figure scene.
Yeah.
Maybe voices.
Yeah. People said
anomaly
that.
Voices.
People have also said this. They said they got to their room and gotten undressed, and they come out, and a black and white movie from the 30s, they said, is playing on the television, and they turn it off. And they said they hear a full brass band playing from downstairs. So, you know, like the jazz music of the 30s.
Yeah.
And they said they get pissed because they're like, someone should have told me about that before I rented a room if there was going to be an event here. So they go downstairs to complain. And when they get downstairs, there's absolutely nothing. There's not a bellhop. There's no one at the desk. There's nothing. And then people say they go back to their room and come back, and then everything's just as normal. So people just said that Rosamund Board probably did actually come back. And people think that she haunts now this bar below called the Veranda. And actually, even like famous people, like John F. Kennedy's mother, Rose Kennedy, she said that she saw this woman. So, you know, I mean, these fake Charlie Chaplin used to stay here, and Clark Gable, you know, these old actors used to stay here and stop coming back here because they said that there was too many hauntings. And there's just been a lot of, you know, of bad reports, right? One thing people do say is, like, if you're at the bar, they said that you can start to smell like this perfume, which is like the sign of her. That there's just this very kind of like disgusting perfume smell, which comes over you, and it has like a bottom note that's very salty almost, where it almost makes you sick and you think you're gonna throw up. So then you turn around to complain, to be like, excuse me, please move, this is ridiculous. And they say, you just hear like a laugh, like a crack, like almost like a whip cracking that you think is a laugh. And then you just turn around, there's just no one there, people say. So this is a good place if you guys are still hanging out afterwards to get a drink. It's a great place to do research because there's been so many reported things here. And it's crazy to anyway, get a cup of coffee from this woman named Dawn. So his name was Jay Fiandella, and he became very close to this woman named Dawn. And essentially, they became so close that one day he said, I'd like to change this and open it into a bar. And she said, all right, you can do that, but you're gonna have to pay me $1. So he bought this whole place for $1 and made it into like the biggest bar in terms of like, you know, celebrities and all that in Santa Monica. So the Rat Pack used to hang out here. So, you know, like those famous singers. They said like JFK took Marilyn Monroe into a date here. Almost every celebrity you knew was here. So there was a famous spot called Table 10 where there'd be like a curtain drawn and these celebrities would sit until they say that, you know, Warren Beatty threw this scene and people couldn't come back there anymore. But early on, there was a movie filming down the street called Around the World in 80 Days. You know, a lot of people know that. I don't know that many people have seen the movie. Everyone knows of the movie. But basically, this guy, Jay Fiandella, went to the set and he said, you know, I like your balloons. Can I buy the balloon? And the guy said, all right. Calls his mother and he says, I'm leaving. I'm going to become a balloonist now. So you have to run the bar, right? So his mom, Alice Fiandella, moves into the back of this building and she starts running this bar, you know? And she's kind of like this, what you consider like this angel of Santa Monica. So while all these people are struggling, she's letting people sleep on the floor and she's like laying out for them pallets and like, you know, giving them food. And she's kind of taking care of everybody, and then she's kind of like this woman who kind of makes sure that everybody is keeping in line. So I'll just wait for you guys to check it out. They've been closing it around 5. So this one is the oldest building that remains even on the pier of all, like, you know, of all the buildings that were built, you know. So even just come here, check out this little plaque. So yeah, so this was put up in 1916 by this guy Charles Loof, right? And unique combination of Byzantine, Moorish, and California design. So it's like 3 different cultures combined into this weird building he put together. And it was said it was inaugurated into the National Register in 1987, and then it was only redesigned once. But the weird thing about this place, so this guy Charles Loof, he built a lot of Coney Island, but they say when he started this project, he got either weirdly obsessed or maybe even possessed. So they say that by hand he crafted every one of these horses, and he became so obsessed with it that he was making plaster cast after plaster cast, that he just couldn't stop doing it, and he just kept making these models, because he was saying he was trying to, like, you know, build a horse that would, you know, give you the feel of, like, you know, a real horse. He said, I want a child to come on here and have a great time, and the soul of a horse has to be in the carving itself. So they say after that obsession, this thing was redone in the 50s, and they changed a little bit of it, but that his design still remains of this, you know, mad, obsessed guy. Actually, this is kind of cool because even this is old school. It's lit up by like 1,001 light bulbs.
Speaking of something weird,
There's just light bulbs everywhere. What's that?
I kind of get this out of my head right now.
What's that?
Right now, that guy who asked for a lighter,
Yeah.
his eye was black. Like, black.
Oh my God, yeah, you gotta check the people around here,
Yeah.
honestly.
Probably they have it tattooed.
Yeah,
Oh, that's probably
why.
it. What, iris?
Yeah, tattooed, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
I saw him too, yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
It was
I haven't
crazy.
seen that in a while. But anyway, yeah,
Doesn't
no,
bug me.
but the thing that's crazy about this, so if you step back a little bit, right, you gotta look up here, right? So up here is these additional rooms that were added on later, because in the 60s, this place essentially became a hotel, a little motelish kind of spot.
Yeah, you could tell.
You could tell, right?
You could tell by the doors.
The doors. Yeah, so people would actually, there's like just security there now.
Yeah.
But people would stay there in the 60s and 70s. And why people don't stay here anymore is because there was just a tragic event that happened, right? So people were staying up there asleep, and they had closed the place for the night, and they hadn't thought to unlock this door, which leads down and out. And so this fire raged through there, and 6 people died in the fire. And so it's been kind of like a covered up tragedy, because people say that it wasn't reported right away, that the people who own the park did not want to let the greater public know that this you know, really messed up thing happened here, because they were worried that, you know, customers would stop coming, you know. So for a while at least, they didn't tell until journalists found out about it, and they had to, because people had seen them late at night carrying these burned up bodies out of here, right? So it's just like, you know, that early Santa Monica. Towns that were totally separated were connected by this one road, right? So Route 66 is kind of crazy, right? Because Route 66 is really like the Bermuda Triangle, or maybe even Area 51.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those places where it swallows things up. It's been known to swallow things of all kinds where they just vanish. And there's a long history of that. And we'd be here for a long time if I would tell you everything, so I'm just gonna tell you one of the crazy ones. There's a close by town called Calico, California.
Oh, we've been there.
You've been there?
Yep.
So you guys are the best. You guys are the actual, you guys know that. What do you remember about that?
The mines.
The mines, and then Walter Knott bought it.
Yep,
and-
from Knott's.
So one of the big stories about that, right? So everyone left that town because they were a silver mining town, and when all the silver dried up, you know, they were gonna starve to death. So every man, woman, child, elderly, you can imagine every single person took up and started walking down Route 66 to Santa Monica. And it was, for them, almost a sure thing that they were gonna survive. It wasn't risky, they knew the route. And every single person in that town has utterly vanished. So they say even the sign sometimes disappears and then reappears. Like, you know, it actually was stolen once, so I mean that actually did happen. But the sign has been known to move around. Like its original ending spot was in downtown, but they even moved it here, I think, to be closer to the ocean. But over the years, it's even been kind of like, you know, lost for some like weird amount of time. But along this road, you can just imagine it's like the rapture or something. Everybody just vanishing. But people do say that they've seen ghosts crawling to the sign, like they're one of those, you know, Route 60, like they're one of those Calico, Californian, pioneers or whatever, and they're crawling, and they say as soon as they almost get near it, it's like as if someone grabs them and just yanks them away. So they're dragged away as if they're wandering forever through the desert towards this sign that they will never arrive at, you know?
I mentioned in my vlog that yesterday's tour was pretty cool. But I did forget to mention being mindful about it and respectful. And here the tour guide gives you a lot of piece of history, because there's a lot of good tons of information. But there's some cool things that I didn't even know about LA, Santa Monica, so which is pretty cool that I learned a lot. And the guy that was giving us the tour, he's a pretty cool guy. So yeah. I gotta get back into the game, guys, into investigating. I miss those days, honestly. So I might get into it. But just keep in mind, with me, I'm different. How I run my things. I am skeptical about a lot of locations that I used to go to. And not everything's guaranteed or everything's 100%. But always be, you know, respectful where you go and other locations and people's privacies too. So it's very important. But yeah, I want to give a good shout out to the tour guide from yesterday. His name's Miles. He's a cool guy. Even though he didn't know much about the equipment that I told him about, but he learned a couple things from me. So I was investigating about 9 years, but I stopped. So, but yeah, I'm gonna get back into the game, guys. I'm gonna try to, now that I have transportation and I could go different locations and investigate for you guys and see what we get, and will depend on what equipment I'll be using that I have. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But yeah, guys, I wanted to end this vlog, and I know it's a little late for it, but it's cool. Stay tuned for more updates, and I hope you guys are still working out and, you know, doing your thing. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for more future videos and vlogs or updates. I already forgot how to vlog. It's been a while. Yeah, that's what life does when you get super busy with workflow and other stuff. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this ghost tour in Santa Monica, LA Pier. So yeah, have a good day, guys. Peace.